And, you know, there's been so much talk this year, Rodney, about the Giants letting Saquon Barkley go. There hasn't been enough talk about the Bengals letting Joe Mixon go. The Bengals should have kept Joe Mixon. Maybe the fact that they cut him, or they were going to cut him and then they traded him, maybe that was the kick in the butt he needed 8 years into his career. I don't know if he would be as good with the Bengals as he's been this year with the Texans. But in hindsight, they should have kept Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and it speaks to the level of the organization. Once again, earlier this year, I talked about when Jamar Chase was holding out. Why wouldn't you sign a guy like Jamar Chase? You have no chance offensively or team-wise without Jamar Chase. And why wouldn't you try to pay him now, or even paid him last year if you could have, and really got him at a cheaper market? Now he's exploding. There's so many teams that would love to have a Jamar Chase on the team. He's a good guy. He works hard. He's productive. How do you not send a message throughout your locker room that, hey, we're going to take care of our guys? The two guys that we know that are going to be here, Mike, will be Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And you figure everything else around those guys. And so it's no surprise to me that they would let a classy guy like a Joe Mixon go. And I would just say this too. A lot of times when you let a player like a Joe Mixon go to the Houston Texans, now he gets this second burst of energy. He gets all this excitement. Now he plays on a different level. So I agree with you. If he would have stayed with the Cincinnati Bengals, don't know if he would have been as good, but he's got that motivation, and that's what we're watching right now with the Houston Texans.
And let me tell you what happened with the Bengals and Chase, because this is right up my alley, and I studied this as it was unfolding, understood all the angles and ins and outs. There are two dynamics at play here. Because he didn't hold out, he held in. He showed up, he didn't practice. There was a question whether he was going to play week one. But what are you going to do? You showed up, you're there. At some point, you got to take your helmet, you got to go play. And he did, and look at what he did last night. Number one, he didn't hold out because most of the money that he made this year, the fourth year of his contract, most of that money got paid early in training camp. And if he hadn't been there, that money's gone. It's just gone. And you can get it back in your renegotiation, but it's gone. Secondly, and this is the most important thing, this is why Michael Parsons doesn't have a contract in Dallas in his fourth year. This is why Justin Jefferson didn't have one last year in Minnesota in his fourth year. Even though these teams know when we finally pay the guy, the market's going to be higher, and we're going to have to pay him more than we can get him for now. The way these contracts work, because again, this is year 4 for Jamar Chase. He's making like $4 or $5 million this year. Michael Parsons is making $3 million. Justin Jefferson made like $4 million last year. You get the guy for that fourth year of his career at a price that is so obscenely low in comparison to what you're going to be paying him. If you can kick the can for a year, yeah, we're going to be paying him more, but we're never going to get to the point where we are losing in relation to the low price that we paid his fourth year. And the Bengals played it. Now, is it smart? You could argue it's not from the standpoint of getting the most out of Jamar Chase this year, but they got a lot out of him last night. But I think that's exactly why it happened. They'll pay him next year, but they wanted to get him
off a guy
this year.
But do you want to tick off a guy? Do you want to tick off your locker room? Do you want to turn potential free agents out there away? Because if I'm a free agent, I'm looking at the way the Bengals have done Jamar Chase. I'm like, there's no way they won't even take care of one of the top 2 receivers in all of football. You think I'm going to go there? And that's what happens, Mike. Guys have conversations. Jamar Chase, hey man, you guys call up Jamar, hey man, how's it the Bengals situation? Hey man, I'm not tripping on these dudes. They don't pay, they don't want to pay me. And that's what happens, man. And to me, if you're the Bengals and you've had a bad reputation for so many years, why don't you break that and show that, hey, we got a new quarterback, we got a new, a new feeling around here. Let's do something different. Let's change from what we used to do. Let's take care of our guys. Let's send a message to the league that, hey, if you come to the Bengals and you're the right guy, we're going to take care of you. We take care of our own. That's the message that you send when you sign a guy like that. It's not always necessarily about how much money can you save in the salary cap. It's more important about taking care of that locker room and sending a message to that locker room, Mike.
And you make a great point because they did it with Joe Burrow after 3 years. Because you can't sign any of your draft picks until after their third regular season ends. They did it with Burrow. And you could argue, yes, they should have done it with Chase because Chase was upset. He thought he was lied to. He thought that if he showed up, they'd get him taken care of. And what they did was they lowballed him with bad structure, not numbers. The numbers were fine when you look at the headline that the contract would have generated, but the structure wasn't good enough, and it pissed him off. And now they think next year we'll show up with a giant pile of money and everything will be fine, but you got to get to next year. And there's no bright line between how you handle Jamar Chase and why you're 4-6 right now. But early on, I mean, is it crazy to think one of the reasons they lost to the Patriots week 1 is because Jamar Chase didn't do anything and wasn't even sure he was going to play in the game until 90 minutes before kickoff? I think it's safe to say that might have been a distraction and a factor for the Bengals in week 1. So that one loss could be the thing that keeps you out of the playoffs.
Absolutely. And once again, take care of a guy like Jamar Chase. He's not a troublemaker. He's a productive player. He's a leader. He's one of the top guys on your team. And so many of those young guys look up and respect this guy. So I would say take care of this guy and make sure that he's happy.
And one last point, and this dovetails with what we're going to talk about next. How many owners have to be kicking themselves now when they could have gone after Lamar Jackson, non-exclusive franchise tag, sign him to an offer sheet, structure it in a way, fill it up with cash so the Ravens wouldn't match it, happily give up 2 first-round picks to get Lamar Jackson. Look at how he has played since the moment that any other team could have signed him to an offer sheet. MVP last year, MVP caliber this year. And, Rodney, I think it's all because they were upset with the Browns after the Browns did the Deshaun Watson deal, and nobody wanted to be that next team that went out and did this huge guaranteed contract because of how everyone reacted within the league, within the ownership ranks, when the Browns gave that giant contract to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, a lot of people were very hesitant with Lamar Jackson because he was kind of up and down, and they didn't know exactly what type of quarterback they were going to get. But now you see Lamar, he's worked on his game. He's worked extremely hard on the mental aspect of the game, and he's gotten better. He's gotten a lot more comfortable. They've done a good job of surrounding him with some talent, going to get Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely. He's stepped up. You go out and get Derrick Henry. You continue to work on that offensive line, which is a work in progress. But I'm going to tell you, Mike, once again, on the defensive side of the ball, that's where they're having those issues.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.